And without further ado, we'll get into the presentation here this morning. This is the NCIL Employment Pre-Conference, Session 1 on Career Building Access Pilot Projects for Youth. So who am I? My name is Kendra Scalia. I'm 30 years old, and I have a Master in Public Policy from UC Berkeley. About a year ago, I was considered semi-retired due to disability. I have a neuromuscular disorder since birth. It deteriorates my nervous system and my muscular system slowly over time. It's ongoing degeneration, and it's foreseeable. We know what's happening, and we know when it's going to happen. Unlike today, I might trick you, I am a power wheelchair user primarily for mobility, and am here at the conference in a manual chair with great assistance from wonderful people who I love and adore to help me throughout my day. I began college at the age of 16, graduating high school quite early. I was an SSI recipient at the time and got my Associate of Arts degree at the age of 17. That young, my dreams and goals were all about disability and equity in our country. I wanted to focus on building a more equitable future for individuals with disabilities. My experiences going through the system, navigating the complex and confusing programs, how they interweave with one another, really pushed me to do that. So as Kathy mentioned, the problem statement of the day, thank you so much, to reiterate from Senator Harkin in 2012, he stated, "I believe that we need to modernize our largest federal programs so that they do not require people to prove they cannot work." Absolutely, it is the question of the day. So what is the current federal benefit? What does it look like, and how does it help us? Well, the current rules for eligibility and other programming, it really is fiction that they permit us to work and live independently. These programs, in order to use them, require us to prove that we can't work. They require us to live in poverty, even after you may have been working. You may have assets, some career-building moves behind you. You must still live in poverty to get benefits. And they leave us uncertain and at risk. It's vulnerable to us to be able to go off the system completely without a clear understanding of what are the costs of managing my disability. What all am I undertaking when all of these federal and state programs that have been working together cease to exist to navigate through the next years of my life? And lastly, the program, I think we all can agree, is complex and complicated. So getting into my story, who am I? Well, I was able to move out of my parents' house when I was 18 years old using the Section 8 housing program. And I was very, like Kathy had mentioned with her family, I was very much told from the moment I could go to school, you're going on to college and you're getting a job. That is what we do in this family. And so at 18, when it came time to move out, it was no different. I wanted to move out just as my sister had, and as my sister and my brother after me will do. I wanted to make that transition. But it was confusing. The system was complex. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about what was available to me. And at the time, I felt I was very well informed of what had been going on with federal and state programs and the options at that time. I'd been working in disability since the age of 14, doing summer internships, working on the ADA, working on Medicaid waivers, and having just so much fun learning about it. I was really set up in those first 4 years to understand what I needed to do, and I still was lost. But I moved out of my parents' house into Section 8 home in New York, and I went to school, got a dual bachelor's degree in history and political science from the College of St. Rose in Albany, New York. And when I was done with that degree, I interned for then Senator Hillary Clinton. And I wanted to move into policy. Working in her office drove my career. And it was another difficult, complex move. Now I have to move to graduate school. It's nowhere where I currently live. And I decided, if I'm gonna move, 2 hours, 3 hours, it's all the same. I'm moving where I wanna go. And I moved to Berkeley, California, 3,000 miles away from any family members, all by myself. And it was extremely challenging, exciting, but nerve-wracking. I had no support. There were gaps of 7 months in my services, not just the financial benefit that I received through SSI. The attendant care program that my Medicaid eligibility offered to me was gone, and I had to reapply from the beginning all over again. What that meant for me was that I had to move in with a roommate and found somebody that could provide that financial and physical support for me for those 7 months until the programs picked back up. Luckily, when that happened, I was accepted into UC Berkeley's Goldman School of Public Policy and went on there to study. I had an amazing time studying with my peers and learning as much as I could at UC Berkeley. The one huge hiccup that has been what I see as the start of the major issues to build my career. I needed to turn down required summer competitive paid internships to complete my graduate program so that I could maintain my Medicaid eligibility, to maintain my personal care attendant services. And what that meant was that I couldn't take those competitive paid internship opportunities that were located in Sacramento or Washington, D.C., or Los Angeles, because I needed to stay local. I needed to stay local to maintain the services and support that I already had set up, that I had just spent a year trying to stabilize. So I did that. I remained local, and I made that decision because I felt it was the only decision that I could make. I took a work-study position, and I loved it. It wasn't competitively paid. It wasn't working with any of my peers. I didn't network with policy firms or consultants or peers from other schools like I should have. But I got to learn from some really great individuals, and my local internship project one summer was working on Medicare Part D federal regulations for language access barrier. And I'm very proud that the work that I did for that internship later went on to be cited and change federal regulations for Medicare Part D. During this time, I had graduated and got my master in public policy from UC Berkeley. And I went on to accept a part-time position working with the city of Oakland as an ADA program analyst too. I was very excited, although I really wanted full-time work. But my part-time benefits from state and federal programs were still there to help me for about 4 months until my position went full-time. And at full-time, I went off public benefits completely. I've got to say, though, that it didn't come without challenges because the costs of attendant care for me at the time were about $25,000 a year. Out of pocket, 100%, with no private insurance company that offers assistance to pay for these services. It was an ongoing struggle, a conversation between myself, my former spouse, and my family. What are we gonna do? '25 to 27 is really where the issues started to form and take place. There's an increasing medical and health demands in my life. My disability, as I mentioned in the beginning, is degenerative. It gets worse over time. We can plan for this. There are supports that I can plan for the next 6 to 12 months. If there were a way for me to plan for that, a system for me to plan it in. I applied at this time for the 1619B program, which offers some support for individuals who are working below a certain level. Now, keep in mind, in my state, California, it's about $35,000 annually. I was denied my 1619B eligibility, even though my increasing costs of health were becoming completely mismanageable. I was unable to afford my care. I'm struggling to get by paycheck to paycheck. My health requires for me to go out on short-term disability for a routine procedure, surgical procedure. And during this time, I was laid up for about 2 months. My private health insurance, which I carried the entire time I was off Medicaid, didn't cover home health care to recover from my surgery. And a procedure that normally takes 5 days, in and out, and back to work the next week. It took me 2 months, plus some. It's been 1.5 years since my surgery date, and I'm still struggling to this day to fully recover due to the lack of home health care and nursing care. When I went out on short-term disability, one of the bigger problems, challenges in getting that home health care was not that my private insurance paid for it, but that the burden was on me to pay for it. And here I am on a full-time salary prior to surgery, living paycheck to paycheck. And short-term disability benefits come up. And it is a percentage of the average of what you earned over the last 12 months, which is far less than my full-time salary I'm getting prior to that procedure. I unfortunately returned to work after 2 months because I needed the funding. I needed to pay my bills. My life goes on. But after 6 weeks, I could not endure the commute, the hours sitting at a computer, typing away painfully for 8 hours a day. And within 6 weeks, I quit my job. It was the hardest choice of my life to quit my job. I love work, and I love what I do. But at this time, it was very confusing. It wasn't as simple as saying, my health requires me to leave, and I need to go. It took me a long time to accept the fact that I quit my job, but I'm not gonna go out and look for another one to replace that one right now. And I went and I applied for unemployment benefits because that's where everyone kept directing me to go. You lose your job, try unemployment. And again, I came up with the same problem. The funding through unemployment is not sufficient for me to pay for the personal care that I require to get out of bed, to shower, to get dressed, to eat, to clean my house, to use my computer. It took me a long time of collecting unemployment before I made that decision to apply for SSI, SSDI. Every program that I was aware of, I applied for. I didn't know where to turn to. I didn't know what help I needed. I just knew I was struggling. I was barely floating. I was asking for loans. I was borrowing money from my family members who couldn't afford to lend me money. I did apply to the 1619B program while I was working for those 2 months, and it was granted to me. However, the gaps of service are atrocious. I didn't receive notification that I was 1619B eligible and would receive assistance through Medicaid to have those personal care attendants until 7 months after my application. At this point, I'm already on SSI, receiving SSI benefits. This, by the way, I have to say, was a huge relief to me. It was not a goal that I had for myself, complete opposite of a goal. My goal has always been to be off the system, to be self-sufficient. But this was an achievement. It was an achievement because it meant I'm going to survive. I will literally survive. Someone will come and be with me in the morning. I will be fed. I'll be clean. And I can sit in my apartment. But I'll be alive. With that process came so much guilt and shame. I need to tell my family, I've lost my home. And by the way, that girl that you said had to go to work can't. And to say that to your parent is very hard. My family has been very loving and supportive and accepting. But to get to that point, to admit to yourself that this has to happen, that this is the move you make now, and to get to that point, to be able to overcome the shame that you have, that you want to hide behind and wall yourself behind, it takes months. It's 13 months later since I quit my job, and I'm still struggling, as you can tell, to explain how shameful, how embarrassing it was. And I did nothing wrong. I just wanted help to live so I could continue working. Senator Harkin challenged us a year ago, and he said, we need to focus on root causes and rethink the way our support programs for people with disabilities are structured. Senator Harkin had it right. I want to take a moment here and explain to you what happened to me right after I finally came to terms in my life that I had to quit my job and go on SSI. Before WID came to me and asked me to be a part of this pre-conference and show me what they had already put together for their pilot projects, I had on my own sought out a life coach. I had no other choice. I didn't know what to do. And I heard a lot of people throwing around this term life coach, and I'd heard about it here and there. When I met with my life coach, it was a few weeks of one-on-one meetings, and this individual, although familiar with disability, had never driven a life coaching service plan for someone without a disability, or with a disability. And I gained so much out of the life coaching experience. One of the biggest questions that I had for my life coach when I met him might sound a little silly, because he told me it was. I said, who am I? Who am I without my job? Who am I without my career? Who am I without a family and a home that I've built for the last 10 years? Who am I now? This is a question that I believe many individuals struggle with, not just people with disabilities, but people with disabilities and those who find themselves in my situation having to dismantle your entire career and start from the beginning, and start climbing that ladder all over again at the age of 30, I wouldn't be surprised if the first question every morning you asked yourself was, who am I now? Because I spent a good 2 months doing that, waking up. My life coach, he helped to guide me and direct me on a path that could answer that question. He helped use skills and programming I had never seen before in my life, not through the VR, not through Social Security, not through any other program, at school or otherwise. To get down to the root of who is Kendra. What do I love? What do I embody? What am I bringing to this world? And after 3 weeks of meeting with this guy, I felt I had a direction in life again. I felt that while slowly, because I'm still recovering, I have a path towards a future that can resemble a little bit of what I had at the beginning of my career.